Somewhere along the way, focus became optional and a luxury. We are becoming busier and busier. We rarely ever get bored, yet we are less effective than ever. We are failing at creating habits and routines and managing relationships. And what's funny is that we don't even notice how distracted we are because it became such a big part of our day. We are more distracted than we are focused throughout our day. And of course, the guilt kicks in. We feel guilty that we haven't done as much as we could have, perhaps. And majority of the time, laziness isn't the problem. It is overstimulation. And in this video, we're going to be talking about focus and how to get your power back. Hello my loves and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing amazing. Today we are doing part 2 of my series Pretty Girls with Pretty Brains. In the first video I talked about short form content and how short form content hijacks your brain. We went a little deeper into the biology and neurobiology of these short form videos. Today, I want to take it more from a broader spectrum and also talk about how to reclaim your focus back, how to sink into that deep work and let that flow come to you, as well as just ways to build the muscle of concentration. And before we get on with the video, I have some pretty big news for you guys. Firstly, the biggest one, it's gonna be a year since I started this channel, and you guys cannot believe how much my life has changed, and I am so grateful to be here 1 year later with almost 42,000 subscribers. And I just wanted to thank you all for this amazing opportunity and this community that we have built. And as a gift, as a reward for you guys, and kind of a good challenge for myself, I decided to do a December, which is my take on a video challenge where I will be posting Monday through Friday every day for the whole of November. And somewhere hidden in those videos, there's gonna be a giveaway for you guys, but I'm not gonna tell you where. So definitely turn those notification bells on. And the next thing, it's a little bit of a list. The next thing, I want to start doing a question of the video where I will be picking one question from you guys that you can write in the comments, and I will be answering it in my videos. If you want it anonymously, then you can just DM me on Instagram, or perhaps you want a shout out in the video. The next thing is that I created a Substack because I'm in my Carrie Bradshaw era. I really started enjoying creative writing and just overall just writing and putting my thoughts and emotions and feelings onto paper or now Substack. It's for free, so check it down below. I will leave a link, as well as I will leave a link to my Discord group for some updates and where we can kind of connect, and as well as my social media links. Don't forget to check out those. And yeah, after this longer intro and these big news, let's just get on with the video. So on the internet, there's this whole rave about discipline, and I love discipline. I'm a big fan of it, but sometimes biology is stronger, and the way your focus works is way deeper than just discipline. It is kind of a modern trap because, as I said, the world is our oyster. There is literally nothing that you cannot do. We can go to space, we can become scientists, we can become doctors, we can learn any language just from our phone, we can do anything. Yet, we are constantly under the attention trap. And let's be honest, the majority of us cannot go 5 minutes without picking up our phone. So when you do sit down and you do start working, but every 5 minutes, you grab your phone, you check your notifications, your attention gets scattered, and your brain hates that. Because it might feel like you're multitasking, but there is no such thing as multitasking. It is literally just your brain switching tasks every few seconds or every few minutes. And From studies and from science, we know that your brain needs time to actually dive deep into deep work. So what actually is deep work? So work overall, we can split it kind of into two groups, right? We have the non-deep work, just the surface level, which is going to be your answering emails. It is going to be planning your calendar. It is going to be catching up with some colleagues or writing into the group chat of your class. I don't know. It's just those things that don't really require that much attention. Deep work is a term from a computer scientist named Cal Newport, where deep work isn't just about working longer. It is about working undistracted. Deep work is what happens when your full cognitive abilities are locked in on one high-value task. So this is going to be your writing, this is going to be your actual studying, your active recalls, this is going to be designing, doing creative work, editing. So when you're in deep work, your brain is in kind of a high bandwidth mode. And you know how you feel when you finish your work block, but it was you did get some work done, but you weren't really productive. You kept checking your phone. You feel very exhausted and very fatigued and kind of When you're in deep work, you're using parts of your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning and memory. But these areas get fatigued fast, especially when you constantly interrupt them. Because as I said, you cannot multitask. Your brain only goes from switching tasks. So therefore, your brain gets more fatigued. That's why when you finish that scattered work block, you are fatigued, you're tired, but you're also unfulfilled. And deep work, yes, it feels tiring. You are exhausted, but you are fulfilled. And the reason behind that is dopamine. Because our brain, it loves dopamine. We love dopamine. That's why you check that phone every 5 minutes, because you're looking for that cheap, fast dopamine. But guess what? There's one thing that we probably love even more than dopamine, and that is mastery. And before we get in on the tips on how to get into that deep work on a daily basis, I also want to talk about what is actually the flow state, because in this series, we're talking about science. And to manage how you are feeling and how your work goes and how your day feels, it is very important to understand the science behind what you're doing on a daily basis. So neuroscientists describe the flow state as a total absorption, where action and awareness merge together, the time blurs, and your self-conscious quiets down a little bit. And this state happens when what you're doing is a tiny bit hard, so it is a little bit challenging, but it is not too challenging to overwhelm you. It is the zone where you perform and you feel the best, and this can happen with any task, whether it is your working task where you're sitting down. It can happen when you are cleaning. It can happen when you're exercising, when you're working out. It is something that is happening on a chemical level thanks to dopamine, norepinephrine, and thanks to endorphins. And that's why everything becomes more effortless when you lock in. This also explains why the hardest part about doing something majority of the times is just starting it, especially with it working out. How many times have you didn't want to go to the gym, you didn't want to go for a run, but after the initial 5 or 3 minutes, you become locked in. It is all happening on a chemical level. So in order to be able to do your deep work and flow state on a daily basis, in my opinion, for the majority of us, it would be a good idea to do a little detox. Now, I hate the word detox. I just hate it so much, but we really do need a little bit of a dopamine detox. Now, I'm not going to tell you to throw your phone away, to sell your TV, and to become a monk. But we need to set some boundaries. The first thing that I want you to do to be able to reach the flow state and deep work every day is cut the openings. When you decide to just not get on your phone, you're not going to get distracted. Put that phone away. Turn off notifications. Why should you have notifications on for your social media? The people that do need to reach you have your phone number. They can call. But there is absolutely no reason why you should have your notifications on for your social media. And I'm saying that as a social media manager and a social media agency owner. When you want to work, put that phone away, put it in a different room, put it in a drawer, lock it away. This is from a book that I love. It is The Atomic Habits. And James Clear spoke about how when you want to change a habit, you either want to build better habits or you want to, knock the bad habits out. The most important thing you have to look at is friction. So, if we want to achieve better habits, if we want to do them on a daily basis, we have to find where is the friction between me and the good habit and eliminate it. However, with the bad habits, you have to add in a friction. So if you put your phone away in a different room and you're working, getting up from the chair and going into the other room and opening the drawer and taking your phone out is friction. It is a unnecessary step that you have added, a kind of a little wall between you and the bad habit. Or even when you're working on your computer, close the tabs that are distracting you. Close the YouTube tabs that are distracting you. Or there's even softwares that can block those apps for you. But create friction. The second habit, and honestly, I think the most important one, because this habit determines how my day is gonna go every single day, and that is my mornings. And I know that we are all hearing about it all the time on social media, but it is a big of a deal. When you start your phone off with skyrocketed dopamine, you grab your phone and you start scrolling right away, your dopamine is gonna go all the way up there. Do you think that after scrolling for 20-30 minutes on TikTok in the morning, anything is going to be enjoyable? You have to realize that when you're scrolling, you're setting the bar really high up. And of course, productive work and hard work is not going to seem as enjoyable and is not going to give you such a big of a dopamine as scrolling on TikTok. So when you do this first thing in the morning, and your mornings should be sacred because there's a lot of things going on in your body, in your brain when you wake up. If you are somebody who's struggling to get work done throughout the day, look at your morning routine. For me, first thing I do is get coffee. It's an awful habit, but I love it and it makes me feel good. So first thing, I get my coffee, I get back into bed, and I read. I read for like 20 minutes. The third habit that I want you to do to be able to achieve the flow state is protect your deep work blocks. And now I'm going to explain to you why I absolutely hate the typical Pomodoro method, the 25 on 5 minutes. That's because research shows that deep work requires around 60 to 90 minutes. Why? Because your brain needs roughly around those 20 minutes to actually get into that flow state. So when you're doing the typical 25 on 5 Pomodoro timer technique, you're not giving your brain enough time to get into that flow state. So I still love using a timer. I use the Forest app, but I never go below 45 minutes, not on tasks where I need full undivided attention. So when you are blocking your timeout, when you're doing these deep work sessions, make sure to stick only to one task. That's why I try to do this where I split my week into days where one day I'm doing one thing, whether it is filming, one day it is editing day, and then one day it is studying day. Or like studying requires more than one day. But one day it is going to be full day of biochemistry. The second day is going to be full day of, anatomy, physiology. But try to plan your days that you do as little possible task switching as possible. As little task switching as possible. And at the end of those blocks, make sure to get off your chair and do something, but not on your phone. Of course, not on your phone. But whether it is just stretching out a little bit, if you have a balcony, go on the balcony, take some deep breaths in. Maybe you wanna draw a little. What I absolutely love is doing crosswords. So when I wanna relax a little bit, but also not get out of a flow state or just a state where my brain is, strong, I do some crossword puzzles or making a snack or making coffee or call someone you love, but stay away from distractions. Habit number 4, I want you to reward boredom. And I went pretty deep on this in the last episode, so make sure to check it out. So I'm not gonna go too deep in here, but boredom is really important to us. It is very important to us. It is very important to our brain because during boredom, our brain gets to get creative. It gets to think. It gets to memorize. It gets to kind of reassess thoughts. But when you're constantly overstimulating it, and now I use the word overstimulated a lot, and sometimes I use it as a joke, but I started noticing that I am overstimulated like 90% of the day. Whether it is by screens, by people, by everything. Just we're constantly overstimulated. And I know that it is a word that the whole internet is using a lot, but I don't think we're using it enough, honestly. So get a little bored, plan it. Maybe tell yourself, okay, start slow. So maybe tell yourself, okay, 5 minutes a day, I'm gonna plan that I'm just gonna sit and stare into a wall for 5 minutes. And I'm not going to be calling it meditation, because meditation is when you're trying to avoid any thoughts, or not avoid, but when you're trying not to think of anything and just breathing. No, here, think as much as you want. Think about why the sky is blue. Think about why, I don't know, anything. Think about the most ridiculous questions possible. We're just keeping it kind of in a cage and just throwing dopamine at it 24/7, all time, every time. And, so let your brain be bored, especially if you're somebody who's really into creative work. Step or habit number 5, I want you to do an audit on your inputs. So audit what you are consuming on a daily basis, because I think that's why I personally love Pinterest so much, and it is something that honestly I can't even scroll for more than like 10 to 15 minutes, because then I just get the urge to start doing something. But it is because I've cultivated such a beautiful Pinterest feed where I am fed knowledge and motivation and tips. And it's kind of a surface level habit, or it's nothing that deep. But when you rebrand when you essentially make your social media or anything that is distracting you boring, and not even like boring, but inspirational and educational. And now TikTok I think is a little bit different, because I feel like TikTok is a rabbit hole, but make sure to just unfollow, unmute, and just do a cleanse of the platforms and the things that you're consuming. Because look, I love to laugh and I love memes, but for me the biggest rabbit hole is honestly Instagram Reels, because for some reason Instagram has not recognized what content I like, and it just keeps throwing me memes, and I try not to interact with it, and I try to interact with content that I want to see on my For You page, but it just throws me crappy bullshit videos. And I'm not gonna lie, I laugh at those videos, but at least when I go onto TikTok, it throws me some inspirational things and some motivational things and some things that I can look at from a creator's perspective and get some inspiration. But for Instagram, it's ridiculous. So do an audit of what you're actually consuming. And the last thing is to train. When you go from never focusing and never achieving deep work to trying to sit down and do deep work for multiple hours a day, it's gonna be impossible, and you're gonna burn out, and it's gonna piss you off and you're just gonna be like, whatever, I'm just going back to my phone. So start small. And if that means doing deep work for 30 minutes a day, then amazing. Start with that and then gradually increase. Because your brain is like a muscle, your concentration is like a muscle, and your focus is like a muscle. That's why when you have a period of a few weeks where you binge TikTok and binge Netflix and binge cheap dopamine, it is so hard to get back on track. But for example, with me, when I have my exam season, it is very easy for me to go like this into deep work and into the flow state because I cut out all distractions and it is like a longer period of time. But if, I get lazy and loosey with my routines and my habits, and I get loose with how much time I spend on the distractions and on social media, it is very hard to get back into that routine. And I'm not saying that all of this is easy. It is not easy. And it is very interesting how suddenly focus has become such a luxury. It has become such a flex to be able to focus. And that to me is absolutely insane. But even though it is hard to train yourself and to train your brain and to even rewire your brain a little bit to be able to do these deep work sessions, it is so rewarding. It is way more rewarding than any cheap dopamine, than any distractions, than anything. Because what is more enjoyable than creating, than making something with your own hands, than actually cultivating a life that you want to live? And once you train that brain, it is going to be so amazing because you're going to be able to do things that you've never dreamed of doing because you just were too lazy. But you weren't lazy, you were just distracted all the time. The work will feel lighter. You will feel like things are finally clicking in. And that is exactly how you're going to gain your power back. And that is all for today's video, guys. I love you so much. I really hope you enjoyed the episode 2 of Pretty Girls with Pretty Brains. And let me know down below if there is any content that you would like to see from me in December. And yeah, don't forget to check out the Substack and the social media links and the Discord group, and as well as just subscribe and maybe share this with somebody. And if you have any questions that you would like me to answer in the next video, then write them down. Or if you want it anonymously, then DM me on Instagram. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!